A while ago I made a video about how Teleglitch used a light and purposeful touch to turn empty space into prime horror real estate. That game gives you very little, and because of the way it is, demands that you project your own worst fears onto it. I love it. It is, in a word, slight. Recently, however, I've been playing Space Beast Fright, and it's, well... not that. Space Beast Fright is, like Teleglitch, a run-based horror game from a small development studio currently available on Steam. It's in early access now and actively contributes to the dilution of that term in 2018 by being essentially feature complete already. But I'm not here to talk about that, because even I don't want to listen to me prattling on about the state of development support as a marketable feature. What I am here to talk about is how Space Beast Fright knows and understands everything about minimalism in horror, and just does its own thing anyway. Space Beast Fright, an incredible slew of nouns, all of which I am definitely going to say every single time, has you play as one of up to 4 Space Marines, sent to a randomly generated spaceship in order to strip it clean of important data, before removing the coolants from the reactor core and legging it out of there before the whole thing goes nuclear. So far, so space. Next up on the list we've got Beast, and they certainly are. If one of these impressive collections of mandibles grabs you, you're done for. The kind of budget that can put trained professionals and their guns into space and wants to blow up entire spacefaring vessels to protect the data they house apparently only covers enough body armor for less than one attack from the most ubiquitous threat in the galaxy. But that's fine, you're a Marine. Lock and load, you pitiful sack of meat. The Corps has given you that rifle for a very specific reason, and it sure ain't so you can take it on a tour of the galaxy and die with a round in the chamber. You will kill. From minute 1 of Space Beast Fright, the task is evident. There's a heckload of gosh darn space beasts between you and those data cores, and you've got the tools to shred them all. No pesky Xenos are going to stop you from doing your job, not today. It's a classic case of alien meets big gun. Not so strong outside your air vents, are you? A little bit of superheated plasma ought to sort you right out. But wait, we've still got 2 nouns left. How are we going to get terror and fright when we're pumping out death at a rate of about 13 rounds per second? To find our answer, we're going to want to take a closer look at that gun of yours. This is what the standard screen of Space Beast Fright looks like. Your powered armor comes with a comprehensive heads-up display featuring all kinds of useful tools. You've got a compass, a battery meter, an objective readout, all kinds. You may also notice it takes up about 30% of the screen. This is the standard service rifle of the Marine Corps, really your only meaningful tool to keep at bay the ravenous tides of space beasts. It takes up another 20% of the screen. Now let's fire the gun. Maybe you can see where I'm going with this. While you're firing your gun, only about 1/3 of the screen is actually visible. And this is a big gun. It kicks, it goes everywhere. If you need to kill one space beast, no worries. But if they're pouring down the hall towards you, you have no idea what's going on. It's actually worse than that, because you can see just enough of the screen to know things are getting worse, but nowhere near enough to know what the hell is happening. You just shuffle backwards and keep your finger glued to that trigger in pure terror. Space Beast terror. Space Beast Fright is a game that is not content to simply put the player in a claustrophobic space. It makes the very user interface claustrophobic. You're not just trapped in the corners of some derelict, millions of miles from the nearest habitable planet. You're trapped in the confines of this screen, stuck behind a muzzle flash that's always giving your enemies somewhere to hide. Space Beast Fright takes circumstances that should be comforting, that should stack the odds of surviving in your favor, and then warps them against you anyway. I'm sure I've heard something like that before. It almost seems like a funny joke to bring up James Cameron's Aliens when talking about video games. There's probably a compelling argument to be written that a significant majority of games that center around shooting things in any way are adaptations of this movie in some measure. How many games have you played that cast you as a space marine, in over their head facing down incredible odds and legions of interchangeable hive-like space beasts? Aliens was most certainly not the first movie to do any of these things, but it nonetheless has a huge space in the pop culture consciousness, and I think it does a lot to earn that. Particularly impressive about Aliens is that it manages to be a very effective sequel to Ridley Scott's Alien, while fundamentally changing the audience's relationship to the xenomorph itself. Aliens has to solve the problem of being frightening enough to measure up to audience expectations, while still satisfying their curiosity about what exactly the titular nasty was. Where Alien is a small, contained story about one space tug's crew and the acid creature that loved them, Aliens exists on a totally different scale. The original movie hides the alien from the viewer almost completely, and threatens you with tight spaces and foreboding architecture, while the sequel features literally hundreds of times as many xenomorphs, and gives the audience the opportunity to learn a great deal about their life cycle and how they live on a larger scale. To top it off, this is a movie about space marines. A dedicated team of muscle pals with huge guns have literally hired a massacre consultant to help them shoot the aliens good. How can this scare you? How can this possibly go wrong? The answer to both questions is, as it turns out, almost immediately and in almost every way. Early on, Aliens dispenses with the notion that having big guns is going to be enough to solve this problem by letting us watch an exquisite scene in which almost everyone who was talking trash earlier fucks up and gets some combination of dead, maimed, or captured, leaving us pretty much back where we started with Ripley and one or two new stragglers. But even this scene, where a load of people you hate get repeatedly owned by a huge number of aliens you kind of like, still raises tension in the movie. How? It's to do with this, here. Even though we know these soldiers, really we're still here with Ripley, in the Situation Room, and though she doesn't like these soldiers, they're her best hope of extinguishing the aliens for good. But what does she see? A shitty, crackly video feed of every squad member's helmet cam giving her a live update of them botching the whole thing. This is actually for me the best graduation between the two movies, continuing to explore the horror inherent in trying to use a computer that looks like this. We get this series of rapid cuts as Ripley and the decidedly rubbish Lieutenant Gorman. Seriously, in a movie that could just be called Marines Get Owned, Gorman manages a standout performance in this regard. Watch through 10 different camera feeds as every plan they had laid out fails, heroic last stands backfire, and almost everyone dies. This scene gives us a lot of things, but I want to focus on just one. You might imagine that having 10 different screens would give you a full picture of your operation and make it easier to effectively manage. And maybe if your oeuvre is that's true. But when you end up vastly outnumbered in unfamiliar territory and things start going wrong, it's a different story. Each of these screens isn't just low quality, the sheer density of negative information is actively unhelpful. Gorman may be a professional loser, but his reaction here is understandable. What does he say? Who does he say it to? His eyes flick from monitor to monitor, trying to keep up with a situation that is evolving 10 times faster than he or anyone else can reasonably process it. This idea of trying to follow an unreasonable amount of information while things get worse on a scale that affects each and every point of information is a key example of using maximalism to create tension for the audience. The threat isn't obscured, at least not on the scale of the operation. We can't see the individual aliens on the screens, but by the way the Marines are shaking their cameras around, screaming, and cutting out, we can see how badly everything is going in real time, and the implications of that are clear and stressful for us. Another of my favourite scenes in Aliens, and another way in which this movie tries to communicate how awful it would be to have your life depend on a computer in the 80s, is this one here. Most of the Marines are dead, and the remains of the Ripley squad are trying to hold the fort until their backup dropship can get them out. And they decide to do it with a collection of auto turrets placed at primary entrances to the complex. They weld the doors shut and wait as the horde pours into the corridor to assault the guns, but almost all we see of it is here, on this screen. Just two numbers slowly ticking down as the guns run dry and this defense is rendered useless. It helps to hammer home the idea that the xenomorphs are without number. Realistically, there can only be so many on this planet, but compared to how small the surviving team is, it might as well be an infinity. The ammo in the guns counts down because its running out is certain. Falling to the next line of defense is certain. Death is certain. If you're Ripley, none of this phases you. You've got a confusing cocktail of cryosleep survivor's guilt to get over, and you're going to do that by saving this little girl by whatever means necessary. If you're a good soldier like Hicks, this is just another day on the job. Maybe you'll get through it, maybe you won't, but you'll do your darned best. If you're a normal person like Private Hudson, however, let's just have a look at how your day is going. What was supposed to be a routine drop has maimed you and killed almost all of your friends, whilst your commanding officer couldn't do anything but watch. Your evac crashed for reasons that were never made clear, killing both pilots and leaving you stranded on some godforsaken rock. Instead of,
"There's some juicy colonist daughters we have to rescue from their virginity."
your hero's welcome was one colonist spending the final moments of their life breathlessly pleading that you kill them, and you empathize. On top of that, your only way to relate to this crisis is via screens that tick down the amount of ammo you have left, motion trackers that lie about where exactly death is hiding. Countless games adapt the themes of aliens, even a few fully licensed Aliens games, and to varying degrees of success. Very few games, however, have nailed these sensations for me. There's powerlessness in the face of an infinity of individually terrifying threats, this reliance on shitty computers and shockingly finite resources to survive, this focus on presenting you with exactly how long you have left to live. Space Beast Terrafright, however, does. Space Beast Terrafright is habitually entirely too fucking much. Space Beast Terrafright is a spiritually faithful video game adaptation of the movie Aliens, but the only choice of player character is Private Hudson, and he is yelling "Game over, man, game over" at every available opportunity. In 2018, a joke people like to tell often is that video games are about watching numbers increase. People love it. From high scores to experience meters to numbers of paperclips, increasing numbers are a very effective way of visualizing a player's achievement, of justifying the time they've spent. At any time in any session, I can look at my total number and think, wow, I did all of that. A game characterized by gradually increasing numbers sells the fantasy we all wish for, that someone, somewhere, notices and records every little thing that we do, and that if we do it in the right way for long enough, eventually we will be rewarded. It sells the fantasy that our actions have an inherent and countable meaning. Decreasing numbers are, by contrast, existentially devastating. Seeing a number decrease and continue to decrease invites you to consider that sometime, maybe soon, that number will probably be zero. Zero itself is a distressing idea. If that number can hit zero, what else can run out, never to be restored? Everything you did to preserve this total failed. This is a ledger of every mistake you have made and a harbinger of the fact that one day you'll have no resources left to spend. Where a number can increase forever towards untold infinities, to decrease is to progress towards a singular, final point. To decrease is to embark upon a journey that, like yours, must one day end. Space Beast Terrafright understands this perfectly. Let's take another look at this heads-up display. Visible at any one time, you have your ammo count, battery life, distance to the nearest data core and distance to the nearest space beast blinking and beeping at you, vying for your attention. And there's more to be had too. There are ammo stations to draw from, ammo counts on sentry guns, and even the integrities of the doors. Each of these is its own countdown to some tiny, but perhaps final defeat. Of course, as is the way of things, you'll become obsessed with these numbers. Not in a smart or healthy way, good lord no. Your relationship with these numbers will be panicked and scattershot. In a high-stress encounter, we've already established that if you're firing your gun, you can't fucking see anything. But that big muzzle flash is what's keeping you alive, so your eyes flick between rapidly depleting numbers, meaning that your cool-looking high-stress encounter ends up looking like this. All of this is made infinitely better by the fact that the heads-up display can break. Take a point of damage from these blasted things, or much more likely your own hubris at standing between an active sentry and its target, and rather than losing health from a bar, something in your suit will just quietly stop working, requiring you to go and fix it at a nearby repair booth. The game doesn't make any extra effort to tell you what's broken, either, meaning that this runs together with the purposefully busy user interface to create absolutely fantastic moments. For every time you take suit damage and it removes your computer's ability to render text, there are just as many moments where you take damage, survive the encounter, and then just forget about it. The screen is too noisy and your systems are too numerous to be able to check every single thing at a glance, leading to one too many times when the power goes out all across the ship, and you hit an exquisite multi-stage panic as everything turns off and your heart sinks. You collect yourself and hit the switch to turn on your infrared camera so you can find a circuit breaker, and then feel all the hope in your body leak out through your ears when nothing happens. The camera has been broken for 5 minutes. And it's not just sentry guns that you've got to watch out for. This is a core, Marine. You'll be sharing the corridors of these ships with up to 3 other ultimate badasses. Well, more like up to 1 ultimate badass, and even then it's a tight fit. Even something as simple as rounding a corner is a nightmare of overlapping firing angles and unwanted blind spots that maximize the chance for you to fuck up while just making you feel unsafe. And what's this over here? Perfect. A live camera feed of what's going on elsewhere. The icing on this miserable cake of teeth and claws. You can't all fit into one corridor, so naturally you split into 2 teams and try to work through it that way. But what if your teams are at opposite ends of the ship and the power goes out? What if they need to split up to find a light switch? You need to stay coordinated so you can survive, but how can you? What do you say? Who do you say it to? Who does this screen belong to again? How much ammo have you got left? Oh god, your flashlight's running out. Better switch to infrared. Which key was that again? Wait, if the power's out, there's no sentry covering our backs, is there? Space, Beast, Terror, Fright. It's good. Hey folks, good to talk to you again. As usual, thanks so much for watching. If you like this, the best thing you can do for me is to tell someone else about it, so they can like it. Speaking of which, you can tell the internet you liked it by clicking that like button, which I have to imagine does something for me. If you're itching for more, then there's some videos you might like over there, and a subscribe button you can click if you want to be the first to hear about new videos. A few quick updates. The Titanfall 2 video is officially in production, but I have quite a lot to say, so it's going to be a while. Expect several more releases before that one. Also, since I saw you all last, I've gone over 500 subscribers, which seems like a ridiculous amount. Thanks to everyone who's hit that button, and if you haven't, hopefully I can convince you to sometime soon. And finally, I've started live streaming. If you've always thought that what games criticism was lacking was audience participation, then look no further. Hopefully I'll see you there.